In this video I'm going to show how we can use some clever tricks to make connections to a big part in Orcad to make wires with pin names. So what we want to do is we want to be able to add wires all around this part very quickly. And so what I'm going to do is I'll zoom in. Let's show first the technique I'm going to use, a small technique, and then we'll show how we expand it into a bigger function. So we're going to add a wire to the ground pin, and then let's go from RF1 to RF8. Okay, so we're going to add a wire first with the W. We'll use the W command, which starts a wire, and we'll put it on ground 22. And then we'll use the N command. We'll type N, and that pops up the alias, and we'll call it net1. And just for ha's, let's call it left LNet1 for the left side, because we'll be using that further. So that's LNet1. And then a lot of people don't realize in Orcad we can take this wire now, and if we copy it, as long as it was started with a 1, don't use 0 because there's a bug in Orcad and it won't work. But if I control click and copy that down, I get LNet2. So it automatically updates the index for us in a control copy. And then the next thing is there's a repeat command, which is repeat F4, which repeats the last thing you did. So you can either use the repeat command or you can use F4. And so what we said is we wanted to make wires up to RF8. So now I have these LNet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright? So I'm going to take, now we want to add names for them. So I'm going to take those wires and I'm going to do a edit properties, which is a control E. So I can either use the properties here or control E. So if I go control E, and now we see that it's laid out left to right, so let's pivot so that they're laid out top to bottom. I cleaned up my screen a little bit. So the very important thing that we have to do is when we look at these pins, the nets are going to be named from top to bottom. So we want ground 22, we want a name that we're going to put for RF1, 2, 3, all the way to 8. Okay, so to make sure that happens when we're in this tab, and unfortunately because I got out of that, we got to select it again. Let's select it, control E, and that pops up. So again, we go to the aliases tab, and then we look at the Y locations, and it's 440, 450, 460, 470. Let's just double click and make sure we sort it that way. If we're going to be doing pins across the top, we're going to be worried about the X location. But here now we know they're sorted 440 to 520. And so what we can do now is we can cut and paste names into here. Alright, and what we'll do for now is we'll get a little spreadsheet, and we'll do it, file, blank workbook. And so how many pins did we have? We had 9 pins. So we're going to say net1. So here's the net name. And then let's do, we know it's ground. And I'm going to hide that. Let's look at the name. So we have LNet1 was ground. Then we have our RF. So let's do RF1. And then Control C, Control V, Control V, 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 V. Okay. So this is going to become RF2. And if we go back here and look, we went up to LNet9 as RNet8. So now we want to cut and paste from Excel to here. And the other trick is that when we cut and paste, we're going to select the whole column, and for some reason Orcad needs us to have that name in there too. So we're going to cut all of this, including the name header. We'll go here, Control V, and now we can see, okay, we just changed these wires from ground. RF1 is on RF1, RF2 is on RF2, and all the way to RF8. So that's pretty nice. But now let's see how we can extend that to a whole side. So let's delete this. And now let's zoom out and see the extents. So what we need to be able to do is create all the wires with those net names coming down this side. Then we'll do it for the top, bottom, and the right. But as we saw here, what we need is we need to get the names that we're going to add to them those pins in the same order that they are on the symbol. And that's not as easy as it sounds. So if you had a spreadsheet that was built that way, and you could see the pin names from, you know, they have to be obviously in this order and match the whole order. So some people would have a spreadsheet like that, but CAD Enhance offers the PartBuilder tool, and it can create this for you. So what we're going to do first is we're going to check this guy. So what we have to do is we're going to export a library part to library, and we're going to have Orcad read that library and build this spreadsheet for us. So what the steps are, we're going to look at what this library is. So we're going to do Control E, and we'll go back to that pivot, and we'll come down here, and we want to see, first of all, let's spread this, and we'll see what the library is. And the library is partbuilder.olb. So if we come over here, that means we want to export that library. And here it is. Let's make sure we save it just in case that we made any changes. And if we look, the part that's in here is this test top, bottom, left, right. So we're going to get all these parts when we export it. So I'm going to click on here, and then I'm going to go File, Export, and we're going to export it as an EDIF. And simply, like, to find a place for it, let's just put it to C:temp. That's pretty easy to find, and so C:/temp. And this rules file is something that Orcad Capture builds for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So we're going to be exporting the partbuilder.olb file as an EDIF file. So it's going to be saved in C:temp partbuilder. So we say OK. It says it exists. We're going to overwrite it. And now we're good there. So the next thing we're going to do is use PartBuilder to read that. So I'm going to start up PartBuilder, and there's a new utility in PartBuilder that's designed just for this, to make spreadsheets for people who want to make Orcad connections. So Orcad starts up, and we get this initial thing, and we don't even need to do any kind of, we're going to use a tool utility so we can skip building a part. So we're going to skip this. We're going to go to Tools Utils, and we're going to use this Create SDL from Existing Symbol. And so we have this button here, Create Sorted Symbol Spreadsheets, which is hard to say. And we can browse and go find that EDIF file that we just created. And we're going to go find the ctemp partbuilder.edif. Okay. And then we're just going to click this Create Sorted Symbol Spreadsheets button. And we're going to get a lot of information here. It's going to find all the parts that are in that library. And so it'll pop up a browser for us to select the part that we want to use. And so we're going to select down the bottom, it was the test top, bottom, left, right part. So we say OK. And now it reads that. And then it asks us, OK, I want to create that symbol for you. So let's put this in C:temp too. So C:/temp. And then PartBuilder tells us, oh, I created an Excel file for you, C:temp, the test top, bottom, left, right sorted pins. So now let's take a look at this Excel file, and with PartBuilder we can double click this link and it'll open the Excel file for us. And it had another name open, so let's just close that and do it again. Let's close this temporary one we had, don't save it, and we'll go close that, and we'll double click one more time. So we're going to double click this to open it. And what we can see now is that PartBuilder created a spreadsheet for the symbol. There's one symbol. If there was multiple symbols for a part, there'd be a tab for each symbol. And these are the left side pins, these are the right side pins, these are the top pins, and these are the bottom pins. So let's take a quick peek at those pins. So if we look at the left side pin, it starts with A2 and it's ground 1. And we can see A2 ground 1. It goes down to, let's look where it changes. B8 is RF1. So we can see that the pins in the spreadsheet are in this order that we created, and it comes all the way down and it stops at D16. Okay, and what PartBuilder did, it left us a column where we can create the username. And some people, like if we want any ground to be wired to the net ground, we can put a formula here. So we could say equals if is number, and we'll say search, and we're going to search for ground. And we're going to search for ground in the pin name column, B4. So if it's ground, we're going to say that the pin name is going to be ground. Otherwise, comma, it'll be whatever that pin name is, so it's going to be B4. And I did something a little bit wrong, so we did if is number. I just need one more. Ooh, too many. So is number, we need an if here. If is number search ground B4, I needed to close the parenthesis there, and then there's too many parentheses there. Okay, let's look at that. So this says if search ground B4. So if B4 contains ground, we want it to anything ground. So if it's ground 1 or ground 200, we're going to return ground. Otherwise, we're going to return the pin name. Okay, so in this case, it returned ground. So now we can take this, we can Control C, we can copy it to all these cells, and we'll see what happens there. Control V. So we can see the ground, and we got to this pin B8 where RF1 is RF1. Okay, so we can also take these and copy them all over to every other user column. So this is a simple example. You can put a very complicated formula if you want to create these names. But there's our DC1. We'll come here, picked up the grounds, and let me slide this spreadsheet over into the window, and we'll Control C and Control V, and let's delete those. Okay, so now we have the left, right, all the pin names that we want for the left, right, top, and bottom. So let's go to work making it happen. So we're going to use that trick again, and we're going to start here. Let's zoom in a little bit, and we're going to do W for wire, and we'll do escape to get into W for wire, and we'll click out here. We'll do N for net, and we'll do LNet1. So this is the left net 1. Okay. We're going to click on that. Now we're going to do a Control click and drag to copy it, and now we have LNet2, and then we're going to use that F4. Let's zoom out a little bit to see everything, and we're just going to go F4 until we have wires all the way down that side. And this takes a little bit of clicking, but it's a lot easier than clicking, dragging, and mousing around. And if we zoom in a little bit, we can see we just have LNet1 all the way down to LNet 61. So we're going to create 61 net names, and let's look here in Excel, and we'll see that we actually end on row 64, but we start on row 4, so there's 61 here. So again, we're going to want to copy this whole thing. So let's go. Let's first get Orcad ready for the copy. So we'll zoom back out, and we'll go select those. We'll do Control E to pop into the net. Again, we want to pivot, so we get them all that way. We want the aliases tab, and then very, very important, we want to make sure that we're sorted by Y location. So it's going from 830 all the way down to 230. And if we look here, this is 230 and that is 830. So we want to sort it backwards. We want it backwards. So we need to double click that one more time. Let's go back to the top. So we want it to go, because we're going down, so we want the locations to go 230 down to 830. The Orcad coordinate system, this is a low number, as you can see here. Watch the XY while we go up here. It's X is at Y is at 230 there, and it's at 830 there. So we have them sorted that way. Now we're going to copy the username all the way down to the last wire, and we need to make sure we don't get any extra either here. So we're going to say Control C here, and then we're going to click on the name column, and we're going to do a Control V or a Shift Insert. They both work they should work the same. And let's go zoom in on our work. We can see the grounds got connected to ground, RF1 got connected to RF1. Let's see where it changes over. RF20 got connected to RF20. TX1 got connected to TF1. So we made wires that are named from the pin names. So let's quickly go do this for the rest of the part. This part, we're going to do the top pins next. And those pins, we got to make sure we sort by the X coordinate. So the X is going to be from 550 all the way up to 1130, and that's the way we want to sort them. So let's start by adding a wire. We start with the W command. We add our wire up here. Now we do an N for net name, and we're going to call this TNet1 for top net 1. And we can see it's not rotated, so we hit the R button to rotate it and then locate it. Okay, and now let's zoom in a little bit where we are. So we have a TNet1, and we're going to Control click and drag. We have TNet2, and now we're set up in repeat mode. And repeat mode is a lot easier to use if you zoom out so you can see everything, because otherwise you don't. It doesn't scroll while it's repeating. So we're going to scroll all the way over. And we have all the wires on the top. We're going to select them. We'll do Control E to get in the Properties menu. We're going to go to the Aliases net. And we can see already the net names are not in the right location. So the X, we want to sort by the X location. So now TNet, now we can see it went from 550, like we said, all the way up to 1130. And then we have TNet1 through TNet14. So we have the nets in the right order. And very, very critical that we do that right. So these are the top pins, and we're starting at P5. Let's just double check that. Zoom in one more time over here. So there's P5, TNet1 is ground 4, and we're going to be going all the way over to U16. So if I look here again, we're looking at the top pins, which go from P5 to U16. So again, we're going to want to copy this. Control C. And find our properties window. And we're going to select that, and we're going to replace it by doing Control V. This one isn't that interesting because all the pins are ground. But we can see we added ground to all those pins. So now we're going to speed the process up for the right hand side. We're going to add a wire, call it our net 1. Do the drag, copy and paste, then the F4 to copy it down. Select all the wires. We're going to go into make sure we sorted by Y coordinate so the RNet names show up right. We'll find the right pin column, paste it in there. Take a quick peek at the names, and let's go do the bottom. So now on the bottom, we're going to add the bottom wire. We'll do BNet1. We'll rotate it and get it ready for copy. Copy it across. Do the selection. Get the sort by the X again. and get our column, paste it in, and now we'll take a look around at all the signal names, and you can see how fast we were able to do this. And that pretty much finishes it up. So that sums up what we were trying to do. We connected all the pins of this part. There was a couple hundred pins, and we did it very quickly. So what we did is we exported the library. We had Orcad build us a special, PartBuilder from CAD Enhance build us a special spreadsheet so we could get the names in pin order. And then we cut and pasted them and into the properties editor, and we were able to do this in very quick order.